And I was thinking last night, man, what is John Calipari? Because there's a name for it, and then it finally hit me. He's a sleazy car salesman. That's what he is. I said this dating back to 2020, and it's 2024, and the story remains the same. Nobody has and will continue to do less with more than John Calipari. This whole era of Kentucky just running the SEC, it's over, and it's been over. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, hope all of you having a great Thursday. If not, hope this video can make it a little bit better. And man, oh man, we got a very interesting situation on our hands. And it involves no other than one of the most, I'd say, controversial coaches in the past couple of years, at least my humble opinion, Kentucky's very own John Calipari. And when I say controversial, let me clarify, I'm not talking about for shady things he's done off the court. No. I'm talking about his coaching abilities. Those are controversial. And I got to throw this in here before I go any farther and forget. If you are an OG, I'm talking about a day one subscriber of the channel, you would know we started out as a basketball channel. And I vividly remember in 2020, just like it was yesterday, telling all of you guys in a video that John Calipari is a fraud. For those of you that don't remember that 2020 season, and I know my Kentucky fans, you're not even going to want to think about it, put it away in your memory. Kentucky finished the year 9-16. And when you hear 9-16, you're like, oh my gosh, that's terrible. They weren't even close to 500, but the funny part about it is they really weren't that bad. If you look back at all their games outside of, I'd say, 4 or 5, most of them were 3, 4, 5-point losses. They just could never finish a close one. I'm not talking about one score game, so not a 2 or 3 point game, but they lost 4 games in one season by 1 point. And don't get it twisted. I'm not trying to sit up here and convince you they were even an average basketball team. No. What I'm saying is they weren't atrocious. They weren't embarrassing to watch. And that entire season was comical to me just due to the fact Kentucky still had a bunch of 5-star recruits on the roster. I'm not going to sit up here and name them all off, but y'all remember Brandon Boston. He was one of your 5-stars, and also that point guard, Devin Askew. And there's some more players I could name off, and I could talk about that season for the next 10 to 15 minutes, but the point is, I was stating back in 2020 Calipari was a fraud. And if I was saying that in 2020, you best believe, if anything, my opinion on Calipari has only gotten worse over these past couple of years. And my whole gripe with Calipari, and I'm getting a little too far ahead of myself, I'll touch on this more later in the video, is he's put on this mountaintop, but I don't believe he's earned to be on the mountaintop. As far as it goes from a coaching standpoint, the X's and O's, John Calipari, I can give him good, but I can't put him in that great, elite, or legendary category. No way. But for now, at least, I need to give you some more context and perspective as to why I'm even making this video. And I'll be upfront with y'all. The only reason I'm making this video is because Kentucky, in their past 2 out of 3 ball games, has had embarrassing losses. And really, you could argue and say this entire 3-game stretch they've been on has been embarrassing just due to the fact you beat a terrible Arkansas team by 6 points. But since you did beat them on the road, I'll give you credit there. I have 2 rules. You never apologize for winning in the SEC. I don't care if it's basketball or football. And you also never, and I mean never under any circumstance, apologize for winning on the road in the SEC. It's hard. So I'll just let the Arkansas performance slide by, but make no mistakes about it, it wasn't pretty. I'm here to talk about what I witnessed last night. And Coach Calipari didn't just get out-coached a little bit. He got heavily outcoached. The only reason Kentucky lost is because there was a better coach standing on the opposite side of the court. I'm not trying to say when you look at the history that Florida's coach is better than John Calipari. What I'm saying is, in that ball game, Calipari got outcoached yet again, but what's new? Last night, which was Wednesday night, I cleared my schedule. I said, all right, I got to watch my team, which is Alabama, play. Did that, and also watch Kentucky and Florida. And it worked out great because the Alabama game, it was ending right around when Kentucky and Florida was starting. By the way, big shout out to Alabama basketball. I can't tell y'all enough how proud I am of that team. And I find it funny because a lot of people like to see my team lose, which is Alabama in football, but they also don't understand I go for Alabama basketball. And these past couple of years, we've been at the top of the food chain in football and basketball. It's been a blessing. I've enjoyed every single second of it growing up as an Alabama basketball fan. Whew, we had a lot of rough years, And maybe we make a separate video talking about Nate Oates and Alabama basketball, but for now, let's lock back in here with Kentucky. It is worth mentioning and throwing in there Kentucky in this ball game did not have DJ Wagner, one of their starters, and also Justin Edwards. But to be honest, I don't really think it affects them that much because Edwards has been a huge disappointment this year, and Wagner, he's been up and down. DJ Wagner, I love the kid to death. He's got a lot of potential, but he can't shoot a basketball to save his life. The only thing he's good at is attacking and dishing out, but I think Reed Sheppard makes up for that, and that's what I'm saying. Okay, yeah, you didn't have Wagner, but that just means you insert Reed Sheppard, and I think if anything, Shepard has been one of Kentucky's best players this year outside of Antonio Reeves. And you got Calipari crying after the game, oh yeah, well, we're not healthy, so we just got to get back healthy. Dude, shut up. That is one of the main reasons I've never respected John Calipari. He can never man up and say that team just kicked our butt. He can never do it. And I know Nate Oates is a very polarizing head coach in the SEC. You can say what you want about him, love him or hate him, but he always owns up for his mistakes and owns up to all the losses. Every time Nate Oates loses, it's, hey, we got to be better. We got to do this better. He never says, oh, yeah, well, we got players hurt, it's none of that. And it's crazy I'm having to use Alabama, not in football, but in basketball, as the gold standard. And a lot of you ain't going to like this, but it's true. Alabama is the gold standard in basketball for the SEC. They've won 2 of the last 3 SEC championships, both in the regular season and in the tournament. And now, as when I'm speaking, they're first place in the SEC. Who would have ever thought the day would come that we're having to compare Kentucky to the gold standard, which isn't Kentucky, but Alabama. We'll touch on that a little later, and yeah, I'm going to be very passionate in this video because I'm passionate about basketball. It's what I grew up playing my entire life, and it's a sport I love the most. We'll talk about South Carolina after this Florida game. I want to get to this first. Here's my problem with this game. Florida isn't as near as talented as this Kentucky basketball team from top to bottom. Not even close. Don't take anything away from this Florida basketball team. I think they're a fringe NCAA tournament team, but they're not on Kentucky's level. Florida beat you, essentially, with 3 players. Clayton Jr., who hit 7 threes, including the big one at the end we're going to talk about in just a second. Samuel, their forward, and also Pullen, their guard. All 3 of those guys I just listed off had 20-plus points. Nobody else scored in double figures. This was Florida's offense in a nutshell. They're going to do a couple pick and rolls with Tyrese Samuel. They're going to throw him the ball in the post, let him go to work, and that's it. And the only way I thought Florida had a chance in this game is if Riley Kugel, one of their better guards, shoots lights out, and he didn't do that. He was 3 for 11. On the flip side for Kentucky, typical Kentucky game, Reeves, Shepard, and then Onyenso, he played all right. But outside of that, he didn't get too much. Rob Dillingham, he played okay, but he missed that free throw at the end. I'm not going to sit up here and break down Kentucky's part because Kentucky's Kentucky. You know what you're getting every single night. And we got to talk about the end of the game. It seemed like Kentucky had this one all but wrapped up, but as we saw, Rob Dillingham, he misses a free throw. No big deal, though. No big deal. You're still up 3. You might as well foul, but no. John Calipari doesn't do it. Doesn't foul, and what happens next? Clayton Tune, like he's done all night, lights him up, hits the 3-pointer, nothing but net. I will say, though, Reed Shepard, as great as he's been on defense this year, what in the world were you thinking on that last play? On that last play for Shepard, it was inexcusable. He got caught sleeping. We're not talking about caught sleeping in the second quarter or third quarter. We're talking about with 10 seconds to go in a game. He got sucked into the paint when you're up by 3 with 8, 9, 10 seconds to go. Who cares? Let him take a 2. And then the following happens. Clayton Tune hits a 3, and once it's going to overtime, you can just tell it was over. The chances of winning that game were slim to none. And if you've played sports, you know this. There's a thing called momentum. If your team hits a 3 that you shouldn't even got off in the first place to send to overtime, there's a 98% chance you're winning that game. It was bound to happen. Overtime wasn't close whatsoever. However, Reed Shepard at the end was trying to turn it on, but it was all too little, all too late. And then after the game, I'm not even going to show you the interview because it pisses me off. John Calipari sits up there and says, oh, well, we beat Florida in every major statistical category out there, which was a complete lie. And Todd Golden even spoke on this, and here's what he said, quote unquote. We hit 12 threes, they hit 10. We made 18 free throws, they made 11. We out-rebounded them by 2. We each had the same assists, same turnovers, so that's kind of factually incorrect, to be honest. But yet again, I have to tell myself this before I go on some rant and tangent talking about how he's a crybaby. Should I be shocked by this? I shouldn't. This is John Calipari. I said this dating back to 2020, and it's 2024, and the story remains the same. Nobody has and will continue to do less with more than John Calipari. And I was thinking last night, man, what is John Calipari? Because there's a name for it, and then it finally hit me. He's a sleazy car salesman. That's what he is. That is the best analogy I can give you for John Calipari, a sleazy car salesman, and I'll explain. What is Calipari known for? Selling, and that's what he does. He gets all these 5-star recruits and convinces them to come to Kentucky. And what does he do with them? Nothing. Nothing whatsoever. Disappoint every single season. If you give Nate Oates his team, I'm not convinced that Alabama isn't undefeated right now. This Alabama team currently that is 7-1 in the SEC, they're not that talented, they're not that great, and Nate Oates continues to do opposite, more with less. Before last night's game, to give us some more context here, Nate Oates suspended their center, And Alabama had to play Georgia with their small forward, Grant Nelson, playing center, and it looks like that's what they're going to do moving forward as well. You got Nate Oates winning road SEC games without a freaking center, and on the other hand, you got Calipari with all these athletic 7-footers, and you can't beat Florida at home? And it's not just the Florida loss, it's how they've played in the past 3 to 4 games. Let's talk about South Carolina. I cleared my schedule yet again to watch Kentucky play South Carolina because I knew South Carolina was way better than what the media was giving them credit for. I thought they'd give Kentucky a hard test, but what did I know? They just blew them out of the water. It wasn't even a close game from start to finish. South Carolina controlled it. And I ain't going to hold y'all. I kind of let the South Carolina one slide because I was like, it's on the road, hostile environment. I'll give them a pass. But after watching how they played against Arkansas and then watching Calipari with yet another coaching blunder at home against Florida, I was like, nope, I got to speak on this. I've had enough of Kentucky's disappointment, and I'm not even a Kentucky fan. And it's not just this year alone, and we don't even know how much worse it's going to get, but it's last year. That was a disappointment. Regular season wasn't all too hot. And then the year before that, you lost to St. Peter's in the tournament. This guy has one national championship, and to think about all the talent that's came through Kentucky and is currently in the NBA, you only have one championship to show for it? I'd be ashamed of myself. It's not just the fact that I don't think John Calipari's not even the best head coach in the SEC. I don't even think he's in the top 3. My top 3, off the top of my head in no specific order here, is Bruce Pearl, Rick Barnes, and Nate Oates. There's not a shadow of a doubt in my mind. This Kentucky team is the most talented team in the SEC. And the way it's looking right now, Kentucky more than likely, unless they change something and go on a hot winning streak here, they're not going to win the SEC. And I'm talking about for the regular season and the SEC tournament. If I was a Kentucky fan, which I'm not, here's what I would hope would happen, but I know it's not going to. Number 1, you fire John Calipari because I'm tired of his antics. And number 2, you bring in either A, Nate Oates, or B, Bruce Pearl. But as a non-Kentucky fan, I hope they keep Calipari. I hope they keep him the next 20 years because I ain't scared of him anymore. You see, that's the thing that has changed because when I was growing up, I feared Kentucky. When my team was playing Kentucky, I was like, oh man, that is an outstanding team, and they're going to beat the crap out of us. But now, no, I feel differently. When I see Kentucky on Alabama's schedule, I go, oh, yeah, that's a really good team, but I think we can beat them. Whereas in the years prior, I was like, oh, we're playing Kentucky. Gosh, I'd chalk it up to an automatic loss. And Kentucky fans, you do not want people feeling like that because if I feel like that, you can best believe the players on your teams like Tennessee, Alabama, Auburn, etc., they feel like that as well. This whole era of Kentucky just running the SEC, it's over, and it's been over. And you will continue to be highly disappointed until you fire Coach Calipari. I could sit up here and talk about this situation for the next 2 hours. I'll leave it at this. Let me know your thoughts down below. But Romany!